Is there?
I'm here.
We are live?
Yes.
Hello everyone. I am Prshant Pradhan, behalf of IIID Ahmedabad Regional Chapter. Welcome all of you for this very special event. The success and positive response to the first part of Free Mistakes may encourage to us to continue this sessions. I would now like to take this opportunity and thank the people who have behind us throughout this term through their unflinching support, our team partners. Diamond partners, Nixon Tiles and Sierra Sanitary. Our platinum partners, All About Living, Bala's Office Furniture, Inner Engineering, and the Video World. Our gold partners, Darshan Hardware, Pishla Illumination, Evershine Marbles, Flow Dynamic India, Drive Shopping, Future Solutions Group, Superwin UPVC Doors and Windows, and Matrica Modular Solutions. We thank you all once again. So now I would like to hand over to Mehul, who will introduce the session, and also our speaker, Prshant Pradhan, for today. Mehul, so please.
Good evening, everybody. This is a fantastic evening right now.
Yeah.
I think I was offline. Yeah. We have done this this first session of this particular webinar with Mr. Jajit Singh from Sweden, and we had fantastic reviews from there. We have a one saying, and we promote with this particular sentence called "Mistakes makes a better designer." You know, so while you're doing something new, you always make mistake. गलतियां होती रहती है और गलतियां होते होते कुछ नया बनता है, कुछ अच्छा बनता है. But there are a typical kind of a mistakes which I would just wanted to mention today. एक ऐसी गलतियां होती है जिसका बार बार आप करते रहते हैं, फिर भी you don't come out of it and say that यार ये mistake मैं बार बार क्यों कर रहा हूँ? Why am I doing this mistake again? You know, and I'll just give you a small story of inventor of bulb, Mr. Edison. You know, Mr. Edison was inventing a bulb. You know, at that particular time, he has tried out more than 2,000 materials for the filament. You know, they would keep on trying the same thing, and you know, the entire team got frustrated, and they said that what should we do next? So one of the assistant of Mr. Edison came to Mr. Edison and said that, sir, I think we are making some major mistake. We are not learning from our mistakes. So there is something wrong going on, really wrong going on. And Mr. Edison, with very confidence, he said that, no, our effort is not going to the drain. Today, we came to know that in this world, there are 2,000 materials from which you cannot make good bulb. So let's start tomorrow again. So from your failure, you can always learn. There is no mistake that you cannot learn from it. You know. From this particular note, I just want to introduce my friend and today's speaker, Mr. Prshant Pradhan. Prashant Pradhan has done his graduation from School of Architecture, CEPT Ahmedabad. He has done his post-graduation from Belgian Institute, Amsterdam, Netherlands. He has a lot of accomplishment and awards to himself, but one specific award I just want to mention is that he got a Pilu Modi Award for his final year project thesis, which he has designed for Cultural Museum of Sikkim, Gangtok. And with this, I would invite Mr. Prashant Pradhan to tell us that what he is talking about. Thank you very much. Prashant.
Thank you, Mehul. Thank you actually, IIID also, for giving me this platform and inviting me here. It is indeed a great honor for me to come here and be part of this and to be invited and also to be considered, considering that, you feel that you're so far away. Like Sikkim is so far away from the rest of India. Who knows Sikkim? Who talks about Sikkim? When does Sikkim really figure in the national scene at all? So I definitely thank you for considering this and, getting me on this platform and sharing what would be my kind of mistakes, which I am probably slightly embarrassed about, but you put the whole kind of webinar in this manner. So I guess, I'll have to address it. So when I first thought, how do I address this? How do I begin to think about mistakes? Because I really thought that, I didn't make so many mistakes, but then the deeper I thought into, what I'm doing, I realized that, oh yes, I have made a lot of mistakes in my life. So then it was kind of easier. So I had to just select the few mistakes that I thought could be kind of relevant to the topic. So I guess I will start the talk with me sharing my screen. Okay. And I'll put this here. Is visible the screen? And I'm audible also.
Yes, Prashant.
Yes.
You can do full screen.
Okay, thank you. So 3 mistakes, and this is my office logo, and this is my address as well. This is what Mehul had sent me, mistakes better make a better designer. So I kind of thought about it. How does it make you a better designer? So I gave it some thought, and in the process of thinking, I got more deeper into, what kind of architect I am or designer I am. Then my sister-in-law, who, I'm very close to, so she gave me this book and she said, we'll read it together, and we are still in the process of trying to read it. But this book kind of resonated very closely to me, as a person and as a designer. So I'll just read something very briefly in this. So Bachelard is this kind of French philosopher who says, Bachelard applies this method of phenomenology to architecture, basing his analysis not on purported origins, but on lived experiences in architectural places and their contexts in nature. So he's really talking about lived experiences, the experience of living in an architectural place in the context. So really it hits home in many different ways. And later on, this thing just talks about Bachelard implicitly urges architects to base their work on experiences it will engender rather than on abstract rationales that may or may not affect viewers and users of architecture. Because I really believe that. And I think, that's something that I learned in School of Architecture when I was studying in Ahmedabad as well, that, the experience of the space is really what it is. Beyond that, you can talk about it, you can talk about, right theory, whatever else you can do, but the experience of it is central to what you are doing. So I come from that kind of a background, and then, talking about background, this is kind of the atlas, and how these places have affected me or my background. Basically, this photograph shows that I was kind of born in Delhi, and the first building that I encountered was the Sikkim House, where my dad was the engineer. Of then was the Sikkim embassy was being built, because Sikkim was still a country at that point. And then I went to boarding school, and I encountered this really massive building, which was the St. Joseph School, North Point. And like as you grow older, the buildings that you grew up in, they come in your memories, they haunt you. And this building still haunts me because it comes in different scenarios. And I think it really affected me, because just by the sheer scale and the kind of clarity of this architecture. This is in Shillong. This is my grandparents' house, my mother's side. And it's a very beautiful old house. And it was built in that style also. And I think it has made a huge impact in the kind of, design and architecture that I practice. And this obviously, that most of you know because you're in Ahmedabad, is the School of Architecture. How this has affected me is, there's no end to how much you can talk about it. Then after that, I went to Amsterdam and lived on this houseboat with a bunch of friends and really had a great time. So definitely this is also very close to me. And then I was in New York. I lived in these apartments. Not that these apartments had a profound impact on me, but yes, I lived there for sure. And then finally I came to Gangtok. Sikkim is where I currently reside. And basically, in Ahmedabad, I learned kind of architecture. Then I went to Amsterdam. I did a master's program in what would be urban design and urban planning to some extent, but mainly urban design. So one of the things that I learned when I was in Amsterdam is that the Dutch don't make mistakes. They really think and rethink and overthink each and every point, really. And it is so thorough. They are so thorough about everything that they do, and they follow what is called a consensus older model, pragmatic pluriformity. Every point has been thought and rethought. So I was wondering, how do they make mistakes? How do they not make mistakes? But I also had a bunch of Irish friends who taught me Murphy's Law, which says that if anything can go wrong, it will. So I was a little bit reassured. And with that knowledge, with that arsenal, I came to New York, and then really my knowledge and my experience in interior design, because this is really a seminar about interior design, it happened because of my involvement and interaction with this person. His name is Ali Tayar, and I worked in his office off and on for about a period of 4 years or so. And he was trained as an architect also, but he had this very unique kind of way of approaching interior design and furniture design. I mean, he brought his knowledge of structure. And if you can look at this furniture, you'll understand that this has been designed keeping structural principles in mind. It's not just just designed randomly. It is not just designed to make it look beautiful. It has been designed with a lot of knowledge of structure. But along with that, we designed this restaurant somewhere in the meatpacking district of New York, where I worked on the ceiling. And his approach to design and interior really appealed to me. And it kind of taught me that as an architect, you could approach interior in a very kind of different manner. So we did this apartment, and then we did this residence in Austin, Texas. So this was kind of the architecture. Also, working with him, I was more and more comfortable with working as an architect, but also as an interior designer now, because when you look at his interior design spaces, he really, talks about the outside coming inside the house, and the very simplicity of form and of material and minimal use of color, and really a kind of rigor in his architecture and simplicity, which really, something that I really learned a lot from his, the kind of material that he used was extremely well sort of thought of, very, very thoughtful approach to architecture. Then we designed this hotel in Switzerland. Again, the same sort of language of simplicity. And, he also introduced what would be like extremely high contrast, like this rough granite and this fireplace against this kind of beautiful Krefeld furniture, the Krefeld sofa designed by Mies van der Rohe. And this contrast also was very appealing to me. And with this knowledge, I came to Gangtok, Sikkim, which is where I now reside. And then I started my office. So this is a view of the office. And I put a TD table there so people could have some fun. And then that book there, SML Excel, is part of my Dutch hangover. So more views of the office. And people working here don't really complain about the view, because we've been blessed with a great, great view. And very often we sit down and, because of the pandemic, we can't do that anymore. But we sit down and we discuss and we talk about other things that are not architecture related, and we just generally have a laugh and then get on with work the very next day or the day after that. And some people have fond memories of being here. Yeah, so getting back to the topic, 3 mistakes. What is a mistake? We all know, but problems are a result of mistakes that teach you lessons. And a wise man said, when you lose, don't lose the lesson. So with that knowledge again, I approached the first mistake, which is, the challenge of this mistake was, or this project really, which I'm going to highlight as the mistake, is a luxury resort in an unknown destination. So, typically in Sikkim, there are a few destinations that are extremely popular, so tourists kind of go there. But the client was trying to create a new destination where really nothing really existed. The only thing going for it was that it was close to the river. And it was extremely interesting and challenging for us. But I did not realize that it would lead to so many sort of arguments and challenging sort of duels with the client. One of the things is, this cartoon really talks about the client, wants to be part of the creative process at every step of the way. And they want to control a lot of the design, and because that controls the expenses, and sometimes they don't know where to stop. And, also the client's expectation did not match ours. We had certain, things that we brought to the table, and the client probably expected something quite different. I think they expected us to be at the site way more often, even though it was almost 3 hours away. And it was just not possible for us to be there. And their opinions about layouts were very different from the way we looked at layouts or the way we thought we could do layouts. And also it was very disappointing for us because we used to make detailed drawings and, of every little thing, because it's something that I'd learned also working in New York, that, we make extremely detailed drawings and we go on site and then they're not, there at site, or something else is, there at site. It was extremely disappointing. And we also made detailed renders. To a large extent, to be fair, yes, a lot of the renders were executed on site. And I think, also for them, it was easier to visualize when we made renders. This was like 2008, 9. So it was a long time ago, and not everybody was rendering all the time, like the way people do now. Making realistic renders were extremely difficult, but we had some talented people in the office, and we could sort of create these beautiful renders of the railing. And that was the railing, and this is kind of the reality. And again, on the left is sort of the render, and on the right-hand side is the project as it stands. So despite all those fights and all those struggles, I think, we came out with a fairly decent project. I mean, I was quite happy with the project in the end. And also, some of the things that I'd learned in the past, which was the connection of the outside and the inside, having very large windows, kind of played out. And also, the seating, where the rooms were not really conducive to very large furniture. We kind of designed seating sort of like they want. This is one of the things that I learned here, and I carried on to design sort of other projects also in that manner. So again, this kind of designing of the furniture using plywood, using factory-made products to create a kind of a very interesting design. And again, the connection between the outside and the inside. And this was kind of the restaurant, the dining lounge. This is a view of the swimming pool, and the main hotel is in the background. And the swimming pool was also supposed to perform for an adult pool and a children's pool, as it is always the case in a resort. And we just tried to make it such a way that it was kind of a lap pool, which also rotated a little bit. And, we got a children's play area, children's swimming pool back there. And yes, the connection to the outside with a lot of light filtering in was something that that we were able to achieve. And finally, we got Club Mahindra to take this up. And at some point, it did really well. It was also judged as one of their best resorts or something of the kind. So the reasons for the mistake are, I think, inexperience and immaturity. I think at one point it's allowing your ego to get the better of you, thinking architect's idea is always the best. Architect knows best. So that was on one side. So that was one mistake. And then the reason behind it. The other thing is not enough clarity in the architect-client relationship. We didn't really start off with, because I was also new, we didn't sign an agreement, no roles were properly defined, and architect, I was not really firm about the design. And then we went on site and then we kind of had it out. The outcome of the mistake was, unnecessary stress and tension. There's bad blood in the relationship. and high blood pressure for the individual. I don't know, my client may have got it as well. And the means to overcome this mistake would be to improve the relationship or omission of the commission, as in you just, just walk away, which is like a really horrible thing to do. The lesson in this is to understand the client to have a better relationship. So that is, I think, really, really central to this, very key. And I've always then sort of begun to understand the project is more important than the client or the architect in that case. So you have to pick your battles. You have to know, this is worth fighting for, and this is, maybe you have to just let it go. There are lessons in diplomacy one has to learn, and you should, as much as possible, firmly execute the agreement as well as the design. And if everything fails, I had a very wise architect friend, much older than me, who told me, because I used to complain to him all the time, like, oh, my client did this. And it wasn't only this project and this client. I had a bunch of clients at that time who were creating a lot of problem for me. In my opinion, they were like creating a lot of problem. So this architect just very calmly told me, like, why don't you just, ditch them, just let them go. I did actually a number of clients. I had to really, walk away from the projects because I realized that it's just causing me a lot of tension. So the thing is, walk away from the project or choose clients who will respect your time and work, because sometimes sanity is more important than the project. So these are some of the lessons that I learned in this project. And luckily for us, our relationship got a lot better. We became good friends. And we got onto another project where our renders got a lot better. And the buildings designs got a lot better. And what is now Vivanta has taken up this new project that we're working on together. And I'm very happy to say that it has extremely interesting architectural features, like large courtyards on multiple levels, and all the rooms opening out onto the courtyard or onto beautiful views like the swimming pool out there. And also the interior design, we've looked at traditional material and not gone for, what is, like something that is very easy to get at. Because in Sikkim, there is a kind of habit of there's a practice of just following one type of design and then without sort of more deeper thought into. So I think, we had some deeper thought into what we were trying to do here for the interior as well as the architect. So that was the first mistake. Mistake number 2 was designing a school campus in an impossible terrain. So this is not really interior, but it's more like definitely architecture and master planning. So the challenge of creating a school in an incredibly difficult topography with an extreme steep slope, but did not expect to make silly mistakes in the process. So this was the Ranka Hill Academy. And as you can see from this contour map, it is extremely, extremely steep. And we made a model of this, a computer model of this. And we spent a large portion of the land just trying to get the motor vehicle, the car, the bus. So we could not make it extremely steep as well. So we had to get the bus all the way into the site. Then we designed a way to cut the site, create retaining walls, and then place what would be the large program, which would be the classrooms, and then further classrooms of the lower and middle school and higher schools, and also the hostels in this area. And we also, it was a kind of a challenge for us that a school must have a football field. So we tried our best to, give them a football field. And the client was extremely ecstatic. He was like, he couldn't believe that we had managed to, fit a football field inside this. So the top floor of this is the auditorium. The lower levels, we have the car, bus drop-off, administration, staff areas, classrooms. And as you go on lower, you have more classrooms and dormitories. So this was the kind of section that worked there. And this was a view that, that we had presented to the clients, and they were extremely happy with what they saw. We also made a physical model of this that the clients who are the owners of the school, and right now they only have the school up to class 4 or 5, something like that. So this was where the school would kind of migrate to. So they also showed this to their parents and promised them that this was in the pipeline and they would be building this. So then this is the site, and it's not the one in front, it's the one at the back with those two houses. And as you can see, it's extremely, extremely steep. And this is a view from the site. And this is the contour drawing, is the survey drawing that really threw us off. Because if you look at the drawing and if you look at the scale, there is some sort of a discrepancy in that. And whoever was working on the project, I don't know what they did, but there was a kind of a huge mess. It was a kind of a huge mess. And, you know, I don't know what they did. And when we went to the site and we tried to lay this building out, it didn't fit. Like nothing fit. It just would not fit on site. So one important lesson is that you should always visit the site before you start the design process. Don't start designing till you go to the site. So obviously when you look at this, it did not fit. And we had to go back to the drawing board, make another model. And this is sort of the revised design that we came up with. And by that time, we were more sort of, we got a second lease on, you know, how to do this. And one thing that I really was not happy about in the first case was bringing the car all the way inside. So in this case, I was able to convince the client that we cannot get the car in. So in this case, we were able to just leave the car at the road and from there use stairs or elevators and to get people down, and all the area that was left that had been used up earlier for the car, for the road, was now being used for actual building. And we were able to fit the football field as well as a basketball field and tennis court and a bunch of other programs. So it kind of worked out really well. But when we made the render for it, it looks a little overwhelming. It's a little scary. But this was kind of what was planned. And so the mistake here was kind of overlooking basics before starting designing, not following up and making sure there's no error, not thorough and precise, and having an attitude of complacency. So I hope that we have overcome that now, and we're much more particular about the way in which we do things. But definitely a big learning experience. Always check, double check, triple check before something goes out. So there is very little chance of error because it is extremely embarrassing. Luckily, the client did not think much of it, or we were able to come up with a better design. So he was kind of happier that you know, we did that. Coming to the third mistake now is designing a restaurant by recreating a ruin. The excitement of working in a public project in Ahmedabad, juxtaposing the heritage and the contemporary, but didn't expect the kind of challenges that I had to face. So we all know this saying, the heart wants what it wants. It's a very old saying, the heart wants what it wants. You just can't rationalize all the time what exactly you like. I mean, it's a lot of times it's an intuitive feeling. You just are drawn to it. In this case, it was the client's heart wants what it wants. And then how does the architect deal with it? Like, how are we supposed to deal with what the architect, with what the client wants? So in this case, the client wanted the ruins of Poro in North Gujarat. And I'd been there in my RSP in first year of architecture education. I'd been to the Poro ruins. So he wanted the ruins of Poro brought to Ahmedabad in a fine dining experience. So how to achieve that was really the challenge. It really came from the client, the brief came from the client, and we made whatever research we could on what is Poro and in a slightly deeper analysis of what this could be, or what this could mean. So luckily now we have Google Earth and we can see 2000, this is what the site looked like, 2003. By 2003, some things that started developing, and much later, 2011 is when, you know, the 650 restaurant, 650 Global Kitchen restaurant started operating on the lower level. And so this was the site that was available to us for the design of this restaurant, which was over this 650. So the background for this is that the client's nephew was interning with me in Gangtok and asked me to visit his family restaurant for a meal. His uncle the client met us for dinner, and after dinner showed me the space above the restaurant where he had been planning another restaurant. He asked me for my thoughts and suggestions. My initial observation was noticing that it was a very large space and very open, and suggested that if he didn't plan to build any higher, he could use steel fabrication and achieve a large continuous span and house the entire restaurant in one space. I thought there was a value to it. He must have liked the idea because he started building it out in that way, and he would call me regularly to understand how to proceed further. Then one day he just asked me to make him a proposal and to design the restaurant. So we kind of got along. This is how the site looked when I visited that. So on the left side is the ruins at Poro. The concept basically evolved from looking at the symmetry of the entire thing, and the positions of the temples had already been defined. And we thought we could change the roof structure, but unfortunately, a lot of the roof was already done. And we looked at the pole architecture, the wooden architecture of Gujarat, of Ahmedabad, for a reference of the exterior, as a contrast to the stone temples, because they were, very massive and they were in stone. So the material could be a contrast to that. And we could look at sort of Japanese architecture as a sort of very simple manner in which one could organize the facade. So this was really seen as an organizing principle. For the interior, yes, we looked at House of MG. And we did the design research in developing sort of panels and a host of panels which would be placed next to each other in this manner to create what would be the entire facade of the restaurant. So from the exterior, it could kind of look like this. And we looked at other references, and jalis played a very important role, like the metal jalis. So we made this axo to really highlight where we could open out into nature and where we could kind of enclose it and give the temples their place in the design of this. And we made a lot of renders and views, and this project has really evolved over a number of years. So these were more renders of the same place. And we visited the site several times and saw it in different kinds of weather and conditions. We made extremely detailed drawings for each and every aspect of the restaurant. Wall sections is a drawing that I really find very exciting. So we made a lot of wall sections to describe really what is the exterior and the interior. And one of the things, going back to some of the restaurants that we've designed in the past, is something that has really bothered me in designing restaurants and also the experience of visiting restaurants. So these are some of the restaurants that we had designed. And something that really bothered me is the level of noise. And especially in Ahmedabad, I found that there is just tremendous amount of noise everywhere. It's just, you can scream at the top of your voice and nobody will even bat an eyelid because it's just so loud in general. And somewhere abroad, they don't even allow kids because of just how loud restaurants can be. Sometimes it just gets too much. So the client had this idea, and I learned a lot from this, was to include an acoustic consultant to come on board with us and to be part of the design process. So we designed, reflected ceiling plans. We made, all kinds of drawings, but we also made acoustic drawings. We made acoustic drawings to show how the noise and sound from here would be absorbed, and when they got reflected, where they could be absorbed. So all these panels were placed all over the restaurant design strategically. So these jalis that we introduced in the design of the panels were not just to make it look traditional and look pretty, but they had that porosity levels which allowed for acoustic panels to be placed behind them and absorb. And we used, so like this. And then on the ceiling, we could also have sort of jute, which was a material, again, natural material, which would hide the acoustic panel behind it and would absorb the sound. So, and also this thing called the Chandarvo, which was also the client's idea, to have this in between, and that would also absorb a lot of the sound. And therefore, yeah, so this is a very old render, and this kind of shows the sequence of how the restaurant and the design kind of evolved over time. So these are kind of photographs of the construction process and how slowly we could evolve this to what it came finally. So it was not just the temples, but it was the ruins. It was the feeling of ruins. And there is sort of like a philosophical discussion one can have about this, but it's really about, dining in this sort of experience and how, as a designer, you could approach this and how much of it could be ruin and how much of it could be sort of contemporary. And really, for me, it was, trying to see this whole expanse, the entire expanse of the restaurant. From one end, you can visually connect to the other extreme of the restaurant and still feel comfortable within your space, because, where you are at a single volume space and then you go into a double volume space, and then you again come into a single volume space. So you have cozy spaces as well as very large spaces. And again, the connection to the exterior is still maintained. These are some views of the exterior. And sort of the design decision really was to give all the attention to the temples. So everything was really muted, as you can really see, except for the Chandarva, which is in the middle, which takes all the attention as you come in. The temples would be the highlight of the entire design. So they would be the heroes in a way. And I'm quite happy that it was successful, but the problem really is that nobody knew that we had designed it. So this was kind of a problem for me because, coming from Sikkim again to Ahmedabad, which is a new place for me, and we having designed it, I had no way of letting people know that I had designed it. And also, then according to the Council of Architecture, there's a professional code of conduct, professional conduct, which prevents us from advertising. Obviously, no architect can really advertise and say that, come to me for whatever designs. But, except in this case, the architect may allow his name to appear in a brochure prepared by the clients for the purpose of advertising or promoting projects for which he has been commissioned. So using this, the clients, they came up with sort of some brochures in social media, highlighting the fact that we had designed it. So my office in Gangtok, we had designed this. So this came in Instagram and in Facebook, because I think social media is far, more powerful than any other media at this point in time. Sorry? Hello?
Nothing. That was a mistake.
Okay.
Just go on.
Yeah. So basically the client also wrote me a long letter describing the whole process in which, he had engaged me in the project. And we also had this on other platforms in social media. And, I'm thankful to say that the project kind of ended well, and hopefully more people know that, we are involved in the design of this. The mistake here is not for this project, but in previous projects, not considering acoustics in a restaurant, but in this project, we corrected that. Also not proactively promoting the public projects. It was much later that I learned that, yes, I need to do that, but I earlier hadn't done that. Not claiming ownership or credit for the design. The lesson to be learned here is having an acoustic consultant on board. So I learned it on this project. Again, proactive response on project promotion, ensure that the designer gets credit for the project. And this is something that, that I think all designers need to look at a little bit more seriously, because, a lot of times, especially in public projects, we never get credit. And, it just goes. And it's only when like somebody who's like really interested to know like who designed this and they really get after, then they kind of, know. But a lot of time it just gets lost in the noise. So yeah, then just a final kind of epilogue to this is also a cartoon. And, this Renzo Piano said that it may take a good architect to make a good project. It may take a good architect to make a good project, but it definitely will take a great client to make a good project. So the client is central. It's like so important to the entire practice of architecture, I think. So this is just like a small cartoon, which also reflects, this one house that we've just completed in Satyagraha in Ahmedabad. So this cartoon just says, why do we need this exit to the garden? And the architect says, because it emphasizes the relationship between the interior and the exterior. And we kind of did that, we have this exit here. And why have you chosen wood flooring? Because it creates a warm environment and a healthy atmosphere. So we had this wooden flooring, which we brought all the way from Alang. This is all, and with a lot of challenges doing that. Why does the kitchen have this shape? Well, in this case, it's the dining, because it's the best way to integrate day-night activities. Why have you planted grass over the terrace? Because this is a sustainable house and it reduces the heat impact in it. It ends with like, why? You can just say, because I'm the architect and I say so. Like, you can be totally frustrated by the end when there are like so many, questions. But I have to say that, this was completely not the case with this project, because these clients, so we had like the most amazing time. They were so sort of, they were like the best clients that anyone can ever have, I think. And a lot of these ideas actually came from the clients themselves. And I literally, I just went along with a lot of their stories. And we had a great experience designing this. And I guess, it was my previous mistakes that I had learned from, and I could, execute a project like this. So with that, I would like to end. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant. And it was amazing. It was as good as your, I could say the first time I heard guitar from your hand. You are amazing guitarist. I know that. Everybody from INSEP knows that. So it was amazing presentation by you, and we are open for a question. Before that, I have one first question from my side. How do you define your role now? After you have first mistake, and you have said that client, you have fought with the client, and you didn't have a proper synergy with the client. So do you have any process in which you say that, okay, this is my role and this is client's role? Do you have any specific process from that learning?
It's a very good question and very tricky question also, because really it's very project specific and client specific. Right? I mean, no two projects are the same and no two clients are the same, but you are the same. And your approach,
right.
Yes. You have to sort of always kind of adjust yourself, but very quickly when you get a commission already, very quickly you realize what kind of a relationship is going to be. Whether it is a project that you can take it forward and do something amazing with, or it's a project that is going to give you a headache right from the beginning. So if I realize that this project is going to give me a headache right from the beginning, I will sometimes just say, listen, I can't do your project. And literally, I will just say that I can't do your project. I mean, literally, I can't, because that's just like, that's too much to say anything like that. But obviously, I will find a way out. And then I'll just say that, a lot of times you realize the client wants, Timbuktu, and you want Norway. And it's like not going to meet anywhere. Like, it's just too far to come close. So you just walk away from it. And sometimes you get this energy. I mean, a lot of times it's just engaging with the client and getting this kind of sense of energy from them. And that, okay. And sometimes, despite the fight, sometimes that this is going to be a fight, but it's worth fighting for, because the end result is going to be like something spectacular. So then you just go ahead with it, and let's see where it goes.
Yes, Siraj.
Yeah, Prashant. I just wanted to extend what you just spoke about regarding the fights with the client and the disagreements. Now, all of us have this issue, and at some point or the other, all of us have had disagreements up to the point of contemplating leaving the project. Now, with regard to that, I think this whole notion of pulling out from a project has been not actually romanticized by books like The Fountainhead, and where it's my way or the highway, that kind of a thing. But it doesn't really work that way, isn't it? So do you still think that having that kind of a very altruistic kind of belief to really pull out from a project and not finding a middle ground, is the way to go? Or do you think that there are formulas to deal with every kind of a client? For each client, you have a different way to deal with them. So just wanted to extend a little bit about what you were talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a myth. I don't know if it's really true, but again, don't quote me on this. But somebody told me that any client that goes to Hafiz Contractor's office never comes back. Like Hafiz Contractor has said that, if you come to me for a design or whatever, you will leave with a design, and, I will not, like, you will be satisfied in whatever level. I think that is extremely difficult for me. And it's totally personal. And I really, that's what I was trying to tell Mehul also, that, if I was earlier on in my career, let's say earlier in my career, maybe I would have had this thing that, yes, I'll have to deal with every client and I will find a way to deal with him or her, and I will, find a way around it. But then I really realized that I can't, because, nothing good will come out of it. I mean, for me, what is most important is the project, not even the client. The client also not as important as the project. So if I realize that the client can contribute to the project in a tremendous manner, and so can I, and this synergy between the client and me, because that is what makes the project. If our synergy can become something spectacular, then I will go for it. The same thing I was saying, that, if I realize that, no, and I know it is a difficult thing, but I would rather do that than work with a client that I just no. I will not just work with the client because he's giving me or she's giving me like this most amazing commission and, oh my God, like it's the end of the world. But no, I mean, it's still me. It may be the end of the world. It may be like the most amazing thing there is, but I'm still me. And, no matter, like, I feel, I need to learn to say no for myself, because that thing is always there, that, oh my God, I'm going to get this great commission, and, I will be able to do this and that and all kinds of things. But I think that this also comes with maturity and also having worked for a period of time. I think over a period of time, now I realize that, no, I'm sorry, like it doesn't work. And, I think, somebody else, and I do that also a lot of times when I realize that the client and me are not very well suited, I will suggest another architect who is my friend. And I would say, I think, this person can do your job better than me, because I realized that I can't. Like working for the government in Sikkim, I used to do a lot of projects for the government. And then I realized that it's not getting anywhere for me. I am not progressing as a designer, and it is not helping me in future. It's a kind of a little selfish way to think about it, but it was my own sanity. And then I just said, okay, even though best paying projects and really, really good big public projects, I mean, we did a lot of fairly large projects, but then at one point I just like, no, I will not do any more government projects. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it because it's very difficult to, first of all, that whole process of working for the government requires a different kind of psyche to do something well. And I have a friend who does it really well. So, hats off to the guys who can do it well. There's something that I can do well, so I'll do that well.
Or maybe there's an example of, what actually Naziruddin Shah says, that he said on record is that, there are some movies which I do for my craft, for the love of my craft. And there are some movies which I do just for earning my bread and butter, so maybe that's the middle ground, that some things that we do are not really, really in your realm, but you do it just to keep things running and, not sit idle maybe.
See, Chirag, definitely. I mean, what you're saying is true, but my spectrum for doing things is very wide. And I think I'm a very flexible person. I can, work with all kinds of people and in all ways, in all manners, not always, but in all manners, I can work with people. But there are times, where you have to say no. And Yes, exactly. So
That
Yeah,
is,
I agree.
I think
Absolutely.
that is very personal. I think person to person it may differ. Like I mean, we know Mr. Leo Pereira has a very different way of working than any other architects. We know how good he is, but still, I mean, so it's personal. I think. So that
yeah.
is the first question. Sorry, I mean, you want to say something?
No. I was just wanting to say that you're hoping for almost every project for magic to happen.
Correct.
Not in every project it can happen. You realize that some projects are just not bread and butter, but it's just like you have to do it. You have to do these projects because it also helps you develop your craft. It's also like helps you make new mistakes to learn more. I mean, the challenge of learning more and like like yeah, we do like so many hotels, so we'll do another hotel because it's something that we can do. But every site is different, every project is different, so we learn something new from that project. So definitely, always. So
So there is a first question coming up regarding the site. Mr. Kamal Pariwal is asking, hello Prashant, please tell us how you manage to get different material and different contractor as per your schedule, as site locations are not easy to reach.
mm,
So that is a question for Mr. Kamal.
yeah, it, it's a tough one. It's because also being in Sikkim, I think it's very difficult to get all kinds of materials here. But a lot of times we work with whatever is easily available, also to keep it kind of sustainable. So if we get a lot of bamboo here, we would kind of work with bamboo. Not that I work with a lot of bamboo, but yeah, I would work with that. And also in terms of material, I would, in my whole approach to architecture and interior has been like extremely simple, so that the real magic really happens in the design of the spaces. And even with the simplest of materials and the most basic of materials, you are able to achieve this kind of choreography or the scenography that you move to the space. And I'm also like very influenced by Jeffrey Bawa's architecture, because really, like how you move to the space is really what matters. And whether that thing is, as much as possible, I would like to use natural materials. I try to stay away from artificial materials unless they're really artificial. Like if it's steel, I like to use mild steel. I don't like to use stainless steel. If it's flooring, I like to use natural material like stone or even concrete, and not like tiles. And as much as possible, I don't like to use gypsum. And if it's veneer as opposed to laminate.
Very nice. Sorry. I have this last question for you, I think, for the session. Uh, do you have any one specific mistake? I mean, this will be a tricky for you. So, specific mistake where you have changed your complete design philosophy or a kind of working in a professional life. One mistake or a couple of mistakes. Where you think
Mehul,
that no, yeah,
Mehul, I want to
yeah,
add
what's
to
this?
this. Can I?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask Prashant also about since we are talking about mistakes,
Yeah.
is it or has it happened for you that a mistake has turned out to be a boon or a kind of really something which you had never expected in a positive way?
So this is throwing me off because I did not, I thought, some of the mistakes that I showed was kind of positive. Um, I have made important decisions in my life based on the circumstances, and also my moving. Yeah, it's hard to say that, you made a mistake in these cases because, you already thought about this. Okay, I will do this. I mean, I started an office in Siliguri, and it was extremely challenging, extremely challenging. I mean, maybe that was a kind of mistake I should not have done. I went there too early. I think, because I reached there and I felt Siliguri was not ready to, or I was not ready for Siliguri. And I struggled there for like 3 years. And then instead of struggling more after 3 years, I just like left. Because there was this one client who kind of, there was some little bit of payment left. It was so trivial. It was such a stupid thing. There was a little bit of payment left. And I thought that, I'll just collect the payment and then do whatever I was supposed to do with it. So I called her up and I said, oh, listen, Mrs. So-and-so, please, you have this little bit of payment left. Can you just pay me? And then she just told me like, Prashant, I don't think I'll pay you. It's like, what? Why? Because, the house is leaking here and, there's this problem there and that. And I was just like shocked beyond words. Like, what are you saying? Like, what are you saying? The house is leaking there. I told her very clearly and like very adequately, look, Mrs. So-and-so, I will not come to you for your payment. Fine, you keep the money. Please know that you hired the contractor, you got the contractor, you got him to build it. And if he built you a faulty or waterproofing or whatever, I don't understand how it is my problem. And secondly, if there are more clients like you, that's it. I have to close down my shop. I have to just, pack up and leave. So it was really, I made that decision and I just left Siliguri. Like I closed down my office. My lease was anyway, getting over. And even though my landlord was quite shocked here, why are you leaving? I was like, bahut ho gaya Siliguri. So after,
there is a one
for
more
many years
question.
now, I'm kind of going back to Siliguri, but this time I have my own sort of place I've taken up. And I think, I'm in a different place now. And I can handle these things much better.
Thanks.
There's one more question from Chandan Gopikrishan. He's saying, sir, is it important to have your own style of architecture?
Oh. I don't think it is important to have a style of architecture. It's important to have a philosophy of architecture. I think philosophy is more important. If you have a very sound philosophy, very sound approach to what you think architecture is, then style will come and go, because style is meaningless, really. Like he does this style, he does that style. I mean, when you look at people like Renzo Piano, or even like, there's so many great architects really, like he doesn't really have a style. He has a way of doing things. He has a philosophy by which he approaches the project, but there is no, like you can say, oh, that is a Renzo Piano building because it kind of looks like that, as opposed to maybe either Zaha Hadid or even Daniel Libeskind, or these guys, they have distinct styles. They always approach projects in that manner. But definitely, I don't think styles are the word. Philosophy is, I think.
I think we will take two more last questions. It's from Hari Krishna, Harivalang. Mr. Hari Krishna is asking that, have you ever faced challenges from the contractor's side on a project?
Yeah, of course.
Seriously.
There's a third wheel in this. The client, the architect, and then the contractor. And he's like a really big guy, because, he will spin you round and round, and, he'll spin the client around, he'll spin the architect around. And he's always telling the client, ki, nahi, ye ho sakta hai. Okay, nahi, impossible hai, ye kaisa detail hai. No, contractor, we had to like abandon a project because the contractor just couldn't do it. Like even till now, like, and I came up with so many other solutions, trying to fix the problem. But in the end, the contractor gave up. The client also gave up, and then the project just died. So yeah, contractor is extremely, extremely important in the whole scheme of things.
Yes. Is the last question. I'll just go through that question and then we end the session. It's already 6. So how did you manage to start getting clients? Like, does influence matters, or should we approach to people as much as possible? It's a normal question. How do you get the clients?
I think, you know, like in the beginning, I guess if you do things for very cheap, then, you know, you'll get clients. But it was not sustainable, because in the end, you end up doing things very cheaply, and then you realize you can't really sustain on that. I think if you, it's like the Three Idiots thing, you know. I mean, Three Idiots is a movie that resonates on so many levels. It's fun, it's funny, it's kind of stupid, it's slapstick, but it's also, it's got a very deep philosophy in it, which is very easy to grasp for a kid or for somebody who's like very evolved. So it talks about, you know, just do what you are good at and keep doing it. And then you will get it. I mean, clients will come, they will notice. Like when I came to Ahmedabad also, like, it's not like, you know, I had like a huge support system to give me projects and whatnot. It was just like, I did one project and then somebody else liked that project and then somebody else, whatever. Through that whole process, I got more clients. I think that that's something that I have just followed through. Never run after clients, never run after, okay, I must get this project, or pitching for projects. That is something that I have not done, and I hope I never have to do. And hopefully clients will hopefully find some quality and value in what I'm doing, and they will come to me. And then I'll just do what I do, which is just do everything with passion and rigor and give it everything I have.
Correct. Yeah. So Kanjan, you can take it over from here.
Yeah. Thank you, Prashant, for your wonderful presentations. And now I would like to ask our treasurer, Yogesh Thakkar, to end the session with a vote of thanks. Yogesh bhai, I do it.
Yeah. So, good evening to all. And my duty is to give the vote of thanks. The last thing. So, very inspiring speech from you. And thanks a lot, Mr. Prashant, to spare the time. And it was really very insightful and very, very inspiring. Even I have received from some of our senior in the chat box also very good comments on the today's session. And once again, Khanjan has already acknowledged and thanks all our partners, but I will make it sure. See, now I'm as a treasurer also, it's my duty because of this trade partners, all the term partners, and it's all possible because of the support, financial support from them, for being the sponsors, for that being our term partners for the term of 2 years. And I really thank each and every committee member who are really working behind the scene, especially all people like Mehul, Khanjan, and the whole committee working behind the scene. And thanks once again. I will really appeal to all the membership at a large. Just to, there are two things which we, it's a request coming from the committee. Please pay the arrears which are pending from your side, which will help us. And point number two, a sincere urge to bring membership to our chapter. This is very important. We want good diversity. We want trade members to come. We want more designers to become our members. And even an appeal to bring a friend. A designer bringing a friend, bring a friend to the, and this is the fun. This institution society is really fun. Knowledge, everything, networking, everything together. Please, my sincere urge for bringing a member and for the arrears. And to close, thanks once again. And as we tell, post this, please join for dinner and cocktails. I just, but you can have at your own home. Thank you. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you, everyone.